Hello and welcome to this video on Act 2, Scene 3 of Macbeth. And today we're going to talk about the discovery of Duncan's body after the murder. Before we do that, a quick knowledge check about the divine right of kings. What you're going to do is stop the video and you're going to write a summary of what you understand about the divine right of kings using the words that are appearing here on the screen. So stop the video, write your summary, start the video again when you're ready. If you need a sentence starter, use the phrase, the divine right of kings means. Okay, off you go. Right, here is the kind of thing that you might have written then. So the divine right of kings is a belief that the monarch receives their authority from God and is therefore answerable only to him and not to anyone on earth. The monarch is therefore powerful, and to commit regicide is not just a challenge to earthly authority, but also to heavenly power. During the time of Shakespeare, the threat of regicide was very real. For example, the Gunpowder Plot was a plan to blow up Parliament, killing King James I in the process. Now, the reason why this is important for today's video is that we have the discovery of the regicide, the discovery of Duncan's body, and the characters reacting in absolute horror that this idea of the divine right of kings has been broken. So we're going to read, and as we're reading, I want you to think about this quotation. In this extract, Shakespeare emphasises the horror of breaking the divine right of kings. And as I read you the scene, I want you to find 3 quotations that support this particular idea. Okay, you might want to play the video back a couple of times, just so you've got plenty of time to think this through. So here we go. Macduff comes into the castle, the porter has opened the gate, and he says, "Is thy master stirring?" Enter Macbeth. "Our knocking has awaked him, here he comes." Lennox says, "Good morrow, noble sir." Macbeth says, "Good morrow both." Macduff, "Is the king stirring, worthy Thane?" Macbeth, "Not yet." Macduff, "He did command me to call timely on him. I have almost slipped the hour." So what Macduff is saying here is that he was supposed to collect King Duncan, they're supposed to ride on to the next stop, but Macduff is almost late, so he's quite surprised that Duncan's not kind of up and about and ready. Macbeth says, "I'll bring you to him." Macduff, "I know this is a joyful trouble to you, but yet 'tis one." Macbeth, "The labour we delight in physics pain. This is the door." So he's brought Macduff up to Duncan's door, and then he stops. Macduff, "I'll make so bold to call, for 'tis my limited service," and exit Macduff. Lennox, so this is the Thane of Lennox, he's accompanying Macduff on his journey. Lennox says, "Goes the king hence today?" As in, is the king leaving this castle today? And Macbeth says he does. He did appoint so. So Macbeth is saying, yeah, absolutely, the king is going to leave today. Lennox continues and he describes what happened the night before from his perspective. And he says the night has been unruly, as in it's been absolutely chaotic. Where we lay, our chimneys were blown down and, as they say, lamentings heard in the air, strange screams of death, and prophesying with accents terrible, of dire combustion and confused events, new hatched to the woeful time. The obscure bird, here he means the owl, or in my English accent, owl, the obscure bird clamoured the livelong night. Some say the earth was feverish and did shake. So we've had the screams of the owl all night. When Lennox says that the earth was feverish, imagine kind of having a fever, being really unwell. It's almost as if the whole world was really unwell on the previous night. And Macbeth says, quite a short comment after all of this from Lennox. Macbeth says, "'Twas a rough night." Lennox, "My young remembrance cannot parallel a fellow to it." So he says, "I can't remember anything like this before." Enter Macduff. "Oh, horror, 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 tongue nor heart cannot conceive nor name thee." So Macduff is overwhelmed by horror, so much so that his tongue doesn't have the words to describe what he's just seen. And Macbeth and Lennox speak together. What's the matter? Macduff, "Confusion now hath made his masterpiece. Most sacrilegious murder hath broke ope the Lord's anointed temple, and stole thence the life of the building." So Macduff says murder has taken place, and it's almost as if God's temple, God's home on earth, has been broken into. Macbeth, "What is it you say? The life?" Lennox, "Mean you his majesty?" Macduff, approach the chamber and destroy your sight with the new Gorgon. Do not bid me speak. See, and then speak yourselves. So he says, go and have a look at what I've just seen. Macbeth and Lennox go to do that. And then Macduff starts shouting. He says, awake, awake, ring the alarm bell. Murder and treason, Banquo and Donalbain and Malcolm awake. He says, everybody in the castle needs to wake up. Shake off this downy sleep, death's counterfeit, and look on death itself. Up, up and see this great doom's image. Malcolm, Banquo, as from your graves, rise up and walk like sprites to countenance this horror. And then the alarm bell rings. Okay, remember you're trying to find 3 quotations that support the idea that breaking the divine right of kings is absolutely horrific. If you need to rewatch the video, if you need to pause now to find your 3 quotations, that is absolutely fine. What I would emphasize is that you do stop and have a think about this yourself, that you don't just jump on to find the answers. So here we go. Anyway. So if we look at the bottom of the first column, Lennox is talking about how the night has been unruly, it's been chaotic. It's as if nature itself understands the full horror of what's happened. There's been strange screams of death, the earth was feverish and did shake. The most obvious quotation is Macduff's, oh horror, horror, horror. This obviously shows the depth of his emotion at what's happened because he's repeating that word. The image of the kind of temple being broken into is quite a good one if we're talking about the breaking of the divine right of kings, because what we have here is a religious idea, and Macduff almost sees Duncan's body as a temple that's been broken open, which would obviously be highly blasphemous at the time. When Macduff says destroy your sight with a new Gorgon, this is a reference to mythology. So the idea in mythology is if you look at a Gorgon, it can turn you to stone. So again, another idea of a kind of horrific, unnatural event. And then that word horror is repeated again at the very end. So what we have is a scene that's full of chaos and where the characters are overwhelmed by horror at what has happened. Right, we're going to read the next section, and in it, there's quite a lot of events that happen in quite a fast-paced way. So I'm just going to kind of talk you through all of this before we read. So the next thing that happens is that Lady Macbeth arrives. She puts on a facade of innocence. She pretends that she doesn't know what's happening. Banquo arrives and he's really distressed when he hears the news of Duncan's death. Then Macbeth, Lennox and Ross return to the stage. Macbeth appears to be upset. Malcolm and Donalbain arrive and they hear the news. Lennox then blames the guards. So all of these people have come on stage, everyone knows what's happened, and it's Lennox who says, actually, it was Duncan's guards that have done this. They've got the daggers, they're covered in blood, they're really confused. And then Macbeth announces that he killed the guards. Now, this is a really awkward moment in the scene. Macduff says, well, why on earth did you do that? And Macbeth argues that he was so overwhelmed with anger at the guards that they have murdered Duncan that he had to kill them, and he's done it out of revenge. Now, we as the audience know that Macbeth actually killed the guards so that they can't say anything. But he's pretending that he did it out of revenge. This all gets quite kind of confusing and Macbeth is talking too much. He's really close to giving the game away. So then Lady Macbeth provides a distraction by fainting. Okay, there's lots of characters listed here. So before we read, I want you to just check that you know who everybody is on the stage. So pause the video, jot down who you think everyone is, and then start the video again when you're ready. Okay, well, Lady Macbeth, obviously Macbeth's wife, she's the main driving force behind the murder at this point. Banquo is a military leader, he's Macbeth's friend, he got the prophecy at the start as well. We know who Macbeth is, I hope. He's the tragic hero, the Thane of Cawdor, he's the one who's killed Duncan. Lennox and Ross are Thanes, which means they are leaders within Scotland. They're kind of side characters who deliver messages, who react to things, who provide a bit of extra kind of a few extra characters on stage to react to different events. Malcolm and Donalbain are the king's sons. So Malcolm is the older son, Donalbain is the younger son. Macduff is the Thane of Fife. He's also a military leader within Scotland. He's also a really powerful character, and he's the one who's discovered Duncan's body. Okay, so let's read this next bit of the scene then. So first of all, we have Lady Macbeth entering, and she says, "What's the business that such a hideous trumpet calls parley the sleepers of the house? Speak, speak." Macduff, "O gentle lady, 'tis not for you to hear what I can speak. The repetition in a woman's ear would murder as it fell." So Lady Macbeth comes in with this facade of innocence. She looks like the innocent flower, and she says, "What's happened?" And Macduff says, "I can't possibly tell you. I could not tell a woman this hideous thing." The dramatic irony here is intense because Lady Macbeth has organised the murder. She's seen the body. She put the daggers back. She took Duncan's blood, put it on the guards. She is so deeply involved in what's happened here. And Macduff is saying, "I can't possibly tell you." So we get the sense here that Macduff is maybe a little bit misogynistic. And then Banquo comes in. Macduff turns to him and says, "Oh, Banquo, Banquo, our royal master's murdered." Right, so it's okay for him to tell a man that Duncan's been murdered. And Lady Macbeth says, "Whoa, alas, what? In our house? Really surprised. How could this have happened?" Banquo, "Too cruel anywhere. Dear Duff, I prithee, contradict thyself and say it is not so." Then Macbeth and Lennox and Ross come back in again. And Macbeth says, "Had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived blessed time, for from this instant there's nothing serious in mortality. All is but toys, renown and grace is dead, the wine of life is drawn, and the mere lees is left this vault to brag of." Right, this is really wordy. Macbeth is talking far too much. He's basically saying, "I wish I was dead because everything is meaningless now that Duncan is dead." Malcolm and Donalbain come in. Donalbain, "What is amiss?" as in, "What's going on?" Macbeth says, "You are and do not know it. The spring, the head, the fountain of your blood is stopped. The very source of it is stopped." Again, really wordy, talking round the issue. And Macduff just comes straight to the point. "Your royal father's murdered." Malcolm, "Oh, by whom?" Lennox, "Those of his chamber, as it seemed, had done it. Their hands and faces were all badged with blood, so were their daggers, which unwiped we found upon their pillows. They stared and were distracted. No man's life was to be trusted with them." So Lennox says it must have been the guards. They were badged, they were smeared in blood, and they had their daggers with them. And here's Macbeth's confession. "Oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them." Macduff, "Wherefore did you so?" So Macbeth says, "I've killed the guards." Macduff here is getting quite suspicious. He says, "Why did you do that?" And Macbeth, "Who can be wise, amazed, temperate, furious, loyal and neutral in a moment? No man. The expedition of my violent love outran the pauser, reason. Here lay Duncan, his silver skin laced with his golden blood, and his gash stabs looked like a breach in nature, Perune's wasteful entrance. There the murderers, steeped in the colours of their trade, their daggers unmannily breached with gore. Who could refrain that had a heart to love, and in that heart courage to make love known?" So Macbeth is saying anyone who loved Duncan would have taken revenge on these guards. Lady Macbeth is probably rather frustrated at her husband at this point. He's talking on and on and on. He's committed 2 additional murders that were totally unnecessary. And she says, "Help me hence, ho!" So she goes to faint. So kind of playing on that femininity. And Macduff says, "Look to the lady." So she provides a distraction away from Macbeth, away from these additional murders. Right, what happens next? Well, Malcolm and Donalbain have a conversation apart. What are they going to do? Are they at risk? They don't seem to be particularly upset that Duncan has died, but they're worried for themselves. Lady Macbeth, who's fainted, is carried off stage. Banquo takes charge. They should all get dressed and meet to discuss their plans. And then everyone except Malcolm and Donalbain leave to get dressed. Malcolm plans to flee to England and Donalbain to Ireland. So they're afraid of a couple of things. One is that they could be murdered next. The second thing is that maybe they could be suspected of the murder of Duncan. Malcolm has just been announced as the heir to the throne after all, so maybe he killed his dad so he could get the crown a little bit faster. Right, let's read this bit then. So Malcolm, "Why do we hold our tongues, that most may claim this argument for ours?" Donalbain, "What should be spoken here where our fate, hid in auger hole, may rush and seize us? Let's away. Our tears are not yet brewed." So he says, let's away, let's go, let's get ourselves to safety. Our tears are not yet brewed. So he's suggesting here that they're so much in shock that they haven't been able to cry yet. And Malcolm, "Nor our strong sorrow upon the foot of motion." Banquo, look to the lady. Lady Macbeth is carried out. Right, here Banquo's trying to organise everyone. And when we have our naked frailties hid, so he's saying, not that they're actually naked, but they're in their pajamas, they're in their nightgowns, so let's get dressed. So when we have our naked frailties hid that suffer in exposure, let us meet and question this most bloody piece of work to know it further. Fears and scruples shake us. In the great hand of God I stand, and thence against the undivulged pretence I fight of treasonous malice. So he's going to stand up against this treason, and he's going to make sure the right thing happens. Macduff joins him, and so do I. Everyone joins them, so all. So they're all going to stand up and get to the bottom of this treason, of this betrayal of King Duncan. Macbeth, let's briefly put on manly readiness and meet in the hall together. So he says, yes, let's get dressed like real men should be and meet in the hall together. We're going to have a conversation about this. And everyone says, well contented. So, okay. Exeunt all but Malcolm and Donalbain. So Malcolm says, what will you do? Let's not consort with them. To show an unfelt sorrow is an office which the false man does easy. Mal to England. So he's going off to England. Donalbain to Ireland, I. Our separated fortunes shall keep us both the safer. So if they separate, they'll be safer because they'll be in two different places. Where we are, there's daggers in men's smiles. The near in blood, the nearer bloody. So he means that there's daggers in men's smiles. There's someone here who's pretending to be loyal, pretending to be patriotic, but actually has been wielding the dagger. So this links in with the idea of the facade that we've seen all the way through the play. So Lady Macbeth, for example, has said, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. And Donalbain echoes that idea here. And Malcolm finishes the scene. This murderous shaft that shot hath not yet lighted, and our safest way is to avoid the aim. Therefore to horse, and let us not be dainty of leave-taking, but shift away. There's warrant in that theft which steals itself when there's no mercy left. So he says, right, let's get out of here really quickly. To sum up then, Duncan is dead, the divine right of kings has been broken. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth have almost achieved the golden rind, but in doing so have damned themselves to torment on earth and punishment in hell after death. Macbeth cannot say amen, he cannot sleep anymore. Lady Macbeth recognises that the thoughts of this are going to send them mad. Hell and chaos have been unleashed on this scene. Your turn then to do a little bit of a summary. It's a 3-2-1 summary, so write down 3 things that have happened in this scene. Write down 2 things you've learned about Macbeth's character, 1 thing you learn about Malcolm and Donalbain. So stop the video, do that task, and check out the next video on the next scene.